I wrong for keeping my name change a secret for 5 years? So my 26 female parents decided to name my sister and I after American states. I have permission to share her name, Arizona, and I was called Pennsylvania at birth. Ooh, you got the short end of the stick there, I'm sorry. Yeah, my parents are weird. I guess they thought geographical names were cool, but I think there's a huge difference between calling your child Arizona or Dakota or Paris versus Pennsylvania. They're massive Republicans and America lovers, so maybe they wanted to be patriotic. For as long as I can remember, everyone has called me Pen or Penny. My parents insisted that everyone was to call me by my full name, but most people could see how ridiculous my parents are. My sister, 28 female, didn't struggle as much with her name since Arizona just sounds so much better than Pennsylvania, and the Grey's Anatomy character Arizona Robbins made the name seem quite cool as we got older. I was mocked and teased as a child in elementary school because of my parents' insistence on my full name. They would literally berate my teachers for letting me write Penny on my workbooks. When I was 21, I got my legal name changed to Penelope. Most people I had met in college had assumed that I went by Penny as a nickname for Penelope. Even my boyfriend's mother called me Penelope because I was too embarrassed to tell her that Penny was short for Pennsylvania. I kept it a secret from my parents and close family because I knew my parents would go mental and accuse me of disrespecting their choice. I'm getting married this summer to my lovely boyfriend Tom, 31 male, and as you all know, you have to say your full name in your wedding ceremony when doing your vows. I knew I had to fess up about the name change because the alternative would be hoping they would keep quiet when they heard me say, I, Penelope, instead of I, Pennsylvania. I invited them over to my home and I tried to tell them in a really calm way that I had changed my name, but they freaked out. They said I was disrespectful and I was calling their name choice dumb. They refuse to attend the wedding now. I know I'm not the asshole for changing my name, but my parents are particularly pissed about how I kept it hidden for 5 years before telling them. Most people I know agree with them. They think that I should have had the courage to be honest with them years ago so they would have had time to get used to it instead of dropping the news on them 2 months before my wedding and causing all this drama. A few other family members have dropped out and my poor sister, who is the maid of honor, is having a nightmare with this. My parents believe they had the right to know much earlier. Okay, first of all, I'm sorry this happened to you, but I've been all over TikTok and it's all these people giving out horrible baby names that they're really considering to name their child. And I don't know what this whole trend is to name your kids these most god-awful names, but this is a great reminder to those people that your kid will resent you. Your kid will hate it. Your kid will go behind your back and change it. You think it's cool, edgy, unique. It's not. Please, let your kid's name have meaning. Okay? Stop just naming them. I'm going to name you Phant. Phant, short for elephant. No, stop.
Am I the asshole for wanting my future husband's groomsmen to style his mustache differently for our wedding? My future husband's groomsmen, along with my bridesmaids, all have no issue fitting a wedding aesthetic. The only problem I have is one of his groomsmen happens to have a more 1920s aesthetic imperial style mustache with an extra curl. Think a more dramatic Captain Hook mustache. In my opinion, it tends to be distracting in photos and in person to the point where it's all I focus on. Now, I'm unsure as to if it's just my neurodivergent surfacing, but I need to know if it's an unreasonable request to ask him to change it to something less distracting. My future husband thinks I'm being a bridezilla.
Okay. I love this. Anything with a mustache is funny to me, just off the bat. I feel like I've heard stories like this, but it always has to do, typically when I've read stories, it's a bridesmaid with their hair color.
Yep. Bingo.
So it's interesting for this to be a mustache. My confusion is, how can he change his mustache? I don't know what you're able to do with that.
No, well, she does include a picture.
That is, whoa. That is extreme.
It is a very aggressive, like, I'm honestly impressed. I'm curious what product they use.
That is a full Salvador Dali.
Yeah.
Going on there.
It is very intense. But I think it's one of those things where you wouldn't ask a bridesmaids to change their hair. No. You can't ask him to do this. Like, this is, you're being rude at that point.
It's part of who he is.
Exactly.
And if you care about him and you want him to be a groomsman, the mustache is part of that.
Yeah.
I just don't think there's anything he can do. Because if it's not curled like that,
yeah,
then it looks crazier. It is distracting.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, if I was attending that wedding and I saw that, I'd be looking at him the whole time.
For sure.
Admiring it. That's just part of it. And I think they might have to accept that. He could try to brush it into the beard if that's possible.
Mm-hmm.
Never heard of that.
I don't know. I don't know how beards work. But yeah, I think it's kind of that it would be a double standard if you asked him to change his appearance, because I think it's been well determined. You can't ask that of a woman to do.
Right.
You can't lose weight. You can't dye your hair. Like that's just, you're being an asshole.
Yeah. I understand people wanting people not to take the focus away.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, my perspective is, if it were my wedding, I'd want all the bridesmaids and groomsmen to look also super awesome.
My 30 female, coworker, 28 male, is ignoring me after I said he should leave his wife. How do I make it less awkward? My coworker Sam and I are like two peas in a pod. I've never had a relationship like that. We both like documentaries and books. We constantly send each other documentaries. We always take lunch together and talk about the videos we've sent. Recently, I asked him if his wife watches those videos, and he laughed and says no, and that she jokes and will say he's such a nerd. I said, it doesn't seem like you two have much in common. He got annoyed and asked, am I implying that he doesn't have a connection to his wife? I told him it seems like we have a stronger connection than him and his wife. He told me him and his wife are happy and happily married. I told him it's just strange she doesn't share a major interest of yours. He started ignoring me the rest of lunch. He blocked me from his personal phone, and we only speak at work now. Even then, it's only about work. Even after I apologized, he's still the same way. I want things to go back to normal because the work days are definitely longer ever since he stopped talking to me. So, am I the asshole?
Yeah. Sorry, babe. Sorry, diva. I think you are. There are plenty of people that are in happy relationships and they are literally like polar opposites. It doesn't really matter as long as you find your right person. Her calling him a nerd, I feel like that's like a flirty, like bantery thing. Cause I've said it too. Like I've talked to guys who love Star Wars and I'm like, okay, nerd. But like as a joke.
As a joke. That's like a loving,
That's
like little banter.
Yeah.
You're such a nerd.
Yeah, exactly. And also, sorry for you to know he's a married man, comment on their relationship, and
Your
then
coworkers. That's unprofessional.
Yeah, and then also be like, I feel like ours is better. I'd block your ass too, especially if you were texting me outside of work now. If I was his significant other, like if I was his wife, and I even for a second was like, I'm kind of uncomfy with her texting you outside of work, and then you said some shit like that to my husband at work.
Done.
If he didn't
Blocked.
block you, I'd block you for him.
That's
like,
the appropriate response.
Right. That is the right thing he should do.
Good job, guy. Doesn't happen a lot.
No, it doesn't. And he did the right thing.
Should. This is exactly how you should execute this. And like OP asking, how do I make it less awkward?
You don't. You already made it awkward.
You're
you just
done.
got to give it time. Like really like a long, long time. And even then, you already like
Burn the bridge.
Yeah, like I'm sorry, babe, but you like crossed a boundary. Like you crossed a line that like you shouldn't. Like to go to a married man and be like, where like our bond is better, and then like implying that he should leave her. Like that's wild. Like,
That's weird.
If you ooh.
Am I the asshole for telling her it's my choice to leave too, after she said, quote, my body, my choice? So I was on a marriage path with this girl. Everything lines up. So we are talking about kids and such, just planning. Out of nowhere, she tells me, quote, I would have to have my sister's baby. I go, what? Her. I will have to have my sister's baby as a surrogate. If she can't have kids, I promised her this when we were little. Me. That is a weird thing to promise, especially without consulting the guy you'll marry. Her. She has some fertility issues. What is she supposed to do? Which is weird to me because she just said that this was a promise from childhood. Like, how do you know she has fertility issues when you are 8? Me. Not sure how that is my problem, and I'm not sure why I should be okay with letting my wife having someone else's baby in my marriage. So she is advocating for having that baby in our marriage, not before marriage, while she is still single? Her? Well, it is my body. I can do that if I want to. Me. What are you talking about? You can't reserve 9 months off to have your sister's baby if we are married. Husband has a say on that decision too. That type of thing is now a marital decision. Her. My body, my choice. Me. Well, I can choose to not deal with that too. Ever thought about that? I tried to explain that it is not just having someone else's baby in our marriage, but there could be life-threatening complications during pregnancy as well. And even with no health complications, that isn't something most husbands would be okay with. But no go. She thinks she can do that because it is her sister and it is a sisterly favor. She acted like I was crazy to think the way I do. I obviously thought she was the crazy one. Who is the asshole?
I'm not gonna lie, like, I think it's him.
Yeah.
What confused me the most was when he was like, a lot of guys wouldn't want that, and a lot of people would think that's what did he say? It was like off or weird. No, it is her body, it is her choice, and it's her sister. So if her and her sister are that close and her sister can't have children and you love your family member or your sibling that much, yeah, you're gonna do it. There shouldn't be a problem there. And if you love your wife, you wouldn't see a problem with it either.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think the quote, he says, that is a weird thing to promise, especially without consulting the guy you'll marry.
Why would I have to consult you about? Well, I mean,
it is her body, her choice. Like that, I totally agree with. I think given their specific context, this kind of is consulting you before you guys are married. She's telling you now, but like she doesn't need to ask you for permission. You're not married. You don't have kids. If this was someone who they were married, they already had kids of their own, and she had had risky pregnancies, and so now her health would be on the line by being a surrogate, then I would say, babe, like, we really have to think about this. Like, I know you made a promise to your sister, but I can't lose you. We have our own children to think about.
When is the right time to say something like that? Like, when did you want her to tell you that?
Yeah.
Like, the first week you guys started talking?
No.
That's
too early.
That's way too early.
You don't even know if you're serious yet.
Right. And now you're how long into it?
He doesn't mention how long they've been dating. He just says, I was on the marriage path with this girl. But marriage path, like if someone's goofy, it could be 3 months of dating. And I'm on the marriage path. It could be 3 years. We don't really know. It seems like she's really giving him a fair heads up.
Again, like you're not married
You're not
yet.
married.
You haven't proposed.
No.
You said you're on the marriage track, so you're obviously together and dating, and it came up in conversation.
Like pretty naturally, yeah. They were talking about having kids and such.
Exactly. It came
Seems
up
like
naturally,
a great time.
And she told you what's up. That is such a personal experience to have with a sibling. Who are you to say anything about that? Who are you to question the bond of siblinghood between two sisters, especially when one can't have children and the other can?
I think it's weird that he's like trying to shame her too. Like,
Yeah,
not
like-
many men would be okay with that. Not many husbands, or however he words it. My partner would be okay with me being a surrogate for one of my family members or friends.
And you know what?
So
it is her
weird.
body, it is her choice, and it is your choice to leave. And go for it. You're
Go for
allowed
it.
to leave, but
Go
don't
for it.
shame her.
Even if you were married, if you truly weren't okay with your partner being a surrogate or donating whatever, you have the choice still to leave. You always have the choice to leave. It just becomes different levels of hard or easy to leave, depending on if you're dating or married or
Yeah.
whatever. But you can always leave.